So for our next presentation, we have Mr. Ralph Inforzato representing Jetro. He's also brought along with Mr. Daisuke Kobayashi and Dr. Keiichi Nagata. So I'd like to turn it over to you. Thank you, Ralph.
Yes, Ralph Inforzato. I'm the head of the Chicago office of the Japan External Trade Organization in Chicago. I'm very grateful to speak to the community today. Here's my presentation, Japan's U.S. Investment Dynamic. Jetro, Japan External Trade Organization, is the government of Japan's official trade and investment agency. And as you can see, it's a very large organization. The important point here is that Jetro has 47 offices in Japan. There's a Jetro office in each Japanese prefecture or Japanese state, which is a reflection of the deep network of business relationships Jetro has in Japan and relationships with Japanese local governments. 6 offices in the United States, and we are in Jetro Chicago, but we cover 12 Midwest states. We include Michigan and Ohio, and we go all the way out to the Dakotas, okay? This is our mission. We want to support all Japanese companies who are considering investment in Japan or investment in the United States, or if they're in the United States and they want to expand, we will help them. Over the past year during the pandemic, we've done almost 40 webinars to assist Japanese companies understand the payment protection program in Japanese. They have to understand business assistance programs in Japanese, so we were very active. We also believe, as Consul General Okada said, trade and investment is a two-way street. It flows both ways. So we help American companies who are seeking a business presence in Japan, or they're looking for a business partner in Japan. We will help them do that. We also want to promote Japanese food and agricultural products to the United States. My colleague Daisuke Kobayashi, he's building a new Japan food showcase in our Jetro Chicago office. It'll be ready in autumn. So, you know, Chicago's restaurant owners and food distributors, they can come to our office and try new types of food products from Japan, and we can put them in touch with their producers. And also, you know, more and more, we're being sought out by local governments to help them build relationships in Japan with Japanese companies, and also to strengthen their relationships with their Japanese sister cities or Japanese sister governments in the states or prefectures. So we're very active with state and local governments. Pre-pandemic, you can see, you know, we did these large investment briefings. There's the governor, Mike DeWine of Ohio, speaking in Jetro Tokyo, explaining the Ohio investment environment for Japanese companies. Or that's Governor Kim Reynolds right there, speaking to Japanese companies, explaining the Iowa investment environment. I have to tell you, the voices of governors carry very well in Japan, and Japanese companies listen to the governors. If the governor welcomes Japanese companies, it's a reflection of their constituents. So it's very important to get the governor's message on Japan. And now, more and more local governments, this is from Radius, Indiana. They're from Southwest Indiana. They're gathering their mayors and economic development professionals. They're going to Japan and asking us, you can, right? You will arrange for us to do a briefing for Japanese companies who are seeking investment in the Midwest. In this case, they're meeting with Japanese auto parts companies. And again, East Central Indiana. So we're getting a lot of requests from local governments who are gathering their mayors and their economic development officials, and they're going to Japan, and we're working with them to do presentations, and we'll help them get the messaging in their presentation correct. Local governments are becoming very globally oriented, especially with Japan. Here, this is the macro look. You can see, and I love saying this, Japan is number one. It's the leading foreign direct investor in the United States, $645 billion in 2019. And it's the leading investor again in 2020, supporting almost 1 million jobs, most of those in the US manufacturing sector, R&D deployment, 11 billion, and this is quite unique. Expanding US exports. Japanese companies in the United States exported $85 billion from our country. Why? Because the products that they make in the US are in high global demand. So Japanese companies came to the US to serve the US market. It was 30 years ago. Now, their products are in such great demand that they're exporting from the United States. About 6% of all US exports are from Japanese companies in the US. You can see the industrial structure of Japanese investment in the US, primarily manufacturing, industrial. You can compare it with that of Canada and the UK. Germany is primarily industrial investment. And for me, this is nothing short of an economic miracle to have this amount of Japanese investment in the United States in 2020, 2021. It's important to understand our ecosystem that supports Japanese companies. Of course, the government organizations and the business and cultural organizations. You know, if you're not a member of the Japan-America Society of Chicago, please consider joining it. It's a group of like-minded Americans and Japanese coming together to build a very strong economic and cultural relationship between Chicago and Illinois and Japan. Also, the ecosystem of the Northwest suburbs. You know, Consul General Okada mentioned the Nihon Clinic. Do you know how valuable that is to have Japanese-speaking medical doctors and nurse practitioners during the pandemic? It elevates the quality of life for Japanese families in Northwest suburbs. It's very important. Thomas Dooley Elementary School, it has a dual language program. I had 2 requests during the past 10 years from Japanese families. They said, we want to move to District 54. Why? Because we want to have our kids go to the dual language program at Thomas Dooley Elementary School. An elementary school is now an economic magnet bringing in Japanese companies to the Northwest suburbs? Yes, it is. And again, as was mentioned before, you know, Bob Ingersoll, he was a former US ambassador to Japan. He's from Illinois. He always told me, hey, Ralph, introduce Japanese food to Americans. That's how they understand culture. Americans understand culture through food, and he's right. That's why Mitsuwa plays such an important role. It's more than a grocery store. It's a cultural focal point for Americans. There, $645 billion of Japanese direct investment in the United States. You could compare it with the American investment in Japan. But that amount of investment is nothing short of an economic miracle in this country. You don't see this anymore. This was a very tough time for us. In 1982, here in LaPorte, Indiana, you could take a sledgehammer and whack a Japanese name brand because these Americans thought and they believed they're taking jobs away because these are imports. It's a very tough time. We had to tell state and local governments, if you want to welcome Japanese investment in Japan, this is not the way to do it. But you don't see this anymore. Now you see this. 2020, state of Indiana, Honda, Greensburg, Toyota, Princeton, Indiana, and of course Subaru of Indiana and Lafayette. Their executives are speaking. Japanese and American executives are speaking on how they are managing through COVID. How are they taking care of their associates through COVID? How are they working with their local communities to elevate COVID mitigation? These are the leading companies that help COVID mitigation in Indiana. Do you see what I mean? They've completely changed the situation. Japanese companies' investment here in the Midwest, Northwest suburbs, completely elevated how Americans now value and respect Japan. It's all about mutual support. You know, we at Jetro, Consulate General of Japan too, we want to work with every mayor that's interested in inviting Japanese companies to their communities or to support Japanese companies that are existing in their communities. We want to meet all the mayors. We will help them. I don't want Mayor Hayes to feel isolated. If they go to Japan, we will be with them. We will get their messaging right. We will set up appointments with them. JCC will help us. Consulate General of Chicago will help us. We will help you. American communities, my friends from Skokie are here. Don't feel isolated. We will be with you, all right? Please go to Japan. Start continuing these relationships. Japan will welcome you. Here, this was just published by my team, by Mr. Hashimoto, Ms. Hyland, and Dr. Nagata. We compiled all the macro information in this booklet, Japan's U.S. Investment Dynamic. All the information is here. Dr. Nagata designed this nice cover of our precious Washington Monument and the beautiful Potomac cherry trees, so you wouldn't throw it out. But it contains all of our economic data, and we have this for you. If you scan this, you will hear this presentation that's in here, but you will hear interviews from Midwest local leaders about how they've worked with Japanese companies. You know, listening to me speak about Japan, that's one thing. But when you hear speeches presentations by local mayors like Mayor Hayes or economic development officials, it has a much deeper quality to it. We have this for you today if you're interested. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, for inviting us to your beautiful, beautiful village hall today. Please remember, we will stand with you. Thank you.